The morning sun was barely over the rooftops when my beautiful neighbor appeared at my door with trembling hands, tear-filled eyes, and a sentence that made my whole life stop. She looked like someone who had run out of prayers, out of time, and out of people to trust. Then she whispered, "I need a husband by Friday," and before I could ask whether she was joking, she collapsed against my doorframe like the weight of the world had finally broken her. Before this story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when one person chooses to care, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ancient Truth. Your support helps stories like this reach the hearts that need them most. My name is Cairo Ven, and until that Thursday morning, I believed my life had already become as small and ordinary as it was ever going to be. I lived alone in a faded blue house at the end of Marigold Street, where the lawns were neat, the mailboxes leaned slightly from age, and everyone knew everyone's business but pretended not to. I was 34, a widower, and a man who had mastered the art of surviving without really living. I fixed old radios in a little repair shop downtown, drank coffee that was always too bitter, and came home each afternoon before the heat settled heavy on the sidewalks. Across the fence lived Sorel Amani, the kind of woman people noticed even when she was only watering plants. She was graceful without trying, with warm brown eyes, dark hair always pinned loosely at the back of her neck, and a sadness she carried so carefully that most people mistook it for calm. Sorel had moved in 8 months earlier with her little nephew, Miko, a shy boy with a red backpack and a laugh that sounded like bells when he forgot to be afraid. I had seen them in small moments, never enough to know the whole story. She waved politely when she brought groceries in. Miko sometimes chased paper airplanes across the yard. Once, during a sudden summer storm, I helped her carry a broken flower pot from the driveway, and she thanked me with the kind of smile that made me look away because it reminded me I still had a heart. But we were not close. We were neighbors separated by a fence, a few polite words, and the invisible walls grief builds around people. That morning, with sunlight spilling across my porch and Sorel shaking in front of me, all those walls cracked. I helped her inside and sat her at my kitchen table. Her dress was wrinkled, her lips pale, and there was a bruise near her wrist she tried to hide beneath her sleeve. Miko was not with her, and that frightened me more than anything. She pressed both hands around a glass of water and told me in broken pieces that her older sister had died the previous year, leaving Miko in her care. There had been no one else dependable, no one else willing. But now a wealthy relative, her late sister's brother-in-law, had returned from another city, claiming Sorel was unstable, unmarried, financially weak, and unfit to raise the child. A custody hearing was set for Friday morning, and his lawyers were ready to paint her as a lonely woman with no support, no family structure, and no future to offer Miko. I listened while the room seemed to tighten around us. She said she had tried everything. She had gathered school records, doctor's notes, rent receipts, photographs, letters from teachers, but the other side had money, influence, and a cruel confidence that frightened her. Then she said the words that explained why she had come to me. Her aunt had told the court that Sorel was engaged to be married soon, hoping it would make her situation look stable. It was a desperate lie, born from panic. Now the lawyers had asked for proof, and Sorel had until Friday to show that she had a serious fiancé willing to stand with her, someone the judge could see, someone real. She was not asking me to marry her forever, she said with shame burning in her eyes. She was asking me to pretend long enough to save Miko from being taken away. I should have said no. Any sensible man would have. My life was already full of ghosts, and pretending to be someone's future sounded like a dangerous kind of lie. But then Sorel pulled a folded drawing from her bag. It was Miko's crayon picture of their little house, 2 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun, and above them he had written, "Auntie Sorel is my safe place." That sentence entered me like a blade. I thought of my wife, Nasreen, and the baby we lost before she passed. I thought of all the rooms in my heart I had locked because they hurt too much to enter. And suddenly, I could not let that child lose the one person who loved him simply because the world respected appearances more than devotion. So I said yes. By noon, our quiet street had become a stage for the most fragile performance of my life. Sorel brought over a small box of photographs, documents, and nervous hope. I shaved twice, found my only decent shirt, and dug my wedding ring from the drawer where I had buried it years ago. I could not wear it, not that one, so we bought a plain silver band from a jeweler near the courthouse. The old man behind the counter asked whether we were excited, and Sorel's face crumpled for half a second before she forced a smile. In that moment, I understood the cost of desperation. Lies are easy only when the heart is not involved. The next day was Friday, bright and brutally clear. Daytime stories always make the world look honest, but sunlight can expose cruelty just as sharply as darkness hides it. Outside the courthouse, Miko clung to Sorel's hand while men in polished shoes walked past us without seeing him. He looked up at me with wide eyes and asked softly if I was going to help Auntie win. I knelt in front of him and promised I would tell the truth where it mattered. I did not know then how dangerous that promise would become. Inside the courtroom, Sorel's relative, Cashin Vale, sat with perfect posture and a smile that never reached his eyes. He wore wealth like armor. His lawyer described Sorel as overwhelmed, emotional, lonely, and unsuitable. Each word landed on her like a stone. They brought up her late rent from months earlier, the night Miko had a fever and she missed work, the fact that she had no spouse. Then they turned to me. They asked how long we had known each other, when we had become serious, why no one had heard of the engagement before. My throat tightened. The lie we had built began to shake. I looked at Sorel. She was holding herself together for Miko, but I could see she was tired of being judged by people who knew nothing of midnight fevers, unpaid bills, packed lunches, bedtime stories, and the quiet courage of showing up every single day. And then something in me changed. I stopped performing. I told the judge that I had lived beside Sorel for months and had watched her love that boy with a patience most people only pretend to have. I said I had seen her leave before sunrise and return exhausted, still smiling when Miko ran to her. I said a ring does not make a home, and a man beside a woman does not prove she is worthy. Love proves it. Sacrifice proves it. The child's peace proves it. The courtroom became very still. Sorel stared at me as if she was hearing not the lie we planned, but the truth we had been too afraid to name. Cashin's lawyer tried to interrupt, but the judge raised a hand. Then Miko, small and trembling, asked if he could speak. No one expected it. He stood beside Sorel and said he did not want a bigger house, or a richer family, or new people who said they knew what was best. He wanted the woman who cut his sandwiches into stars because his mother used to do that. He wanted the aunt who cried in the kitchen when she thought he was asleep, then came to his room and told him tomorrow would be better. He wanted to stay with his safe place. That broke something open in the room. Even the clerk wiped her eyes. By the time the judge announced that Miko would remain with Sorel while a full review continued, Sorel covered her face and sobbed into her hands. It was not a final victory, but it was enough. Enough to breathe. Enough to go home. Enough to believe Friday had not stolen everything. Outside, under the sharp afternoon sun, Sorel turned to me and tried to thank me, but words failed her. Miko wrapped his arms around my waist and held on like I had been part of their family longer than one impossible day. I wanted to step back, to return to my quiet house and careful loneliness, but something had shifted. The empty places inside me no longer felt like graves. They felt like rooms waiting for light. Weeks passed. The lie should have ended at the courthouse steps, but real life rarely obeys clean endings. I helped fix Sorel's porch railing. She brought soup when my old cough returned. Miko started leaving paper airplanes in my mailbox with messages like Captain Cairo, mission today is pancakes. The custody review came and went, and this time, teachers, neighbors, and even the pediatric nurse spoke for Sorel. Cashin's polished cruelty cracked under the weight of ordinary truth. Sorel was granted permanent guardianship, and when she walked out holding the papers, she did not look like a woman saved by a pretend husband. She looked like a woman who had fought the whole world and won. But love, when it came, arrived quietly. Not with music, not with lightning, but on a Saturday morning when Sorel found me in my backyard staring at the dead rosebush Nasreen had planted years before. I told her I had never been able to pull it out because it felt like betrayal. She knelt beside the dry branches and said some things are not removed because they were unloved, but because something living deserves the soil. We replanted that corner together with marigolds, and for the first time in years, I cried in front of someone without apologizing. Near the end of that summer, Sorel came to my door again in daylight. This time, she was not trembling. She wore a yellow dress, Miko stood beside her with a grin too large to hide, and in her hand was the same plain silver band from the courthouse. She said she no longer needed a husband by Friday, but she wondered if I might want to become family slowly, honestly, and for real. I laughed through tears, because sometimes life gives back what grief convinced you was gone forever. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone who still believes love can heal broken people, and subscribe to Ancient Truth for more emotional stories that remind us of what truly matters. Special request, comment, kindness changes everything, if you believe one act of courage can save a life. Years later, people on Marigold Street still talk about the morning Sorel knocked on my door and asked for a husband by Friday. They tell it like a strange little neighborhood legend, smiling as if it was romantic from the start. But I know the truth. It was not romance that began our story. It was fear. It was a child in danger. It was a woman with no one left to ask. It was a grieving man who almost said no, then chose to open the door anyway. And maybe that is what love really is in the beginning, not fireworks or perfect timing, but one wounded heart recognizing another and deciding, just for one day, not to let it stand alone.